Mystic Moon Open.
It's Wednesday evening. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe with Wendy Schindler and Travis Short. Every week, we will interview guests that are experts in various fields of the supernatural, paranormal, unexplained, and esoteric. So sit back and let us take you on a journey to educate, enlighten, and entertain as we broaden your horizons. Now, here's your hosts, Wendy Schindler and Travis Short.
And it's me, Wendy Schindler, with my co-host, Travis Short.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, a little of this and that. Just
Ooh, more of this or more of that?
Pretty even spacing on them this time.
Ooh, 50-50.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That's a well-balanced life, right?
That is. It doesn't get much better than that. You got
no, it does
50%
not.
this, 50% that.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of that. Have you seen the movie The Campaign with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis?
No. But then again, Will Ferrell is not a favorite of mine, so I
know.
Yeah.
But very funny movie. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the most poignant political satires that I've seen in a long time. And it really does, I think, shed a lot of light on the modern political machinations, if you will.
Okay.
Very funny movie. But Galifianakis' character is like this tourism director in North Carolina. And he asks, the tourism office sits next to this little store called Candles and Such.
Alrighty.
And he asks the woman who runs it, he's like, how's business? And she's like, well, Such is selling, but I can't move the candles. And he's like, yes, you can, Irene. Can't's the real C word. And it's like...
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's like you got Candles and Such, this and that, 50 this, 50 that. You have to make up your mind. So It's been a long day. This is my second hour of live broadcasting, and when we do the second hour of this show, it'll be my third hour of live broadcasting, and I have 4 back-to-back tomorrow.
Well, it's a good thing we don't have a show tomorrow night then, eh?
I would have no voice. I do have a phone conference at 9:30, and that's going to suck.
Yeah. As these things quite often do.
They do. No, I have a 2-hour live remote from a McDonald's in Kentucky tomorrow, and then a 2-hour live remote from a big Chevy dealership.
Uh-huh.
And I have an hour in between the two, and it literally will take me about 45 minutes to get from one to the other.
Pack your lunch, have it ready to go. You can eat on the way.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. How are things in your neck of the woods? You don't really have woods, though, there. What do you have?
Well, not right here, but, I mean...
Oh, now, okay. For the audience, you were watching a movie earlier today, and you were messaging. I'm trying to work, folks. I'm in my office. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to manage 2 radio stations and employees and sales, and I get this message on Facebook. I'm watching this creepy movie called The Boy from 2015. Like, yeah, that movie's creepy as hell.
Yes, it is, actually.
It's got claustrophobia. It's got dolls. That is a good movie for
June and Ross.
Yes, thank you. You got this whole creepy doll thing.
Yep.
You got the old couple, and they're creepy as hell.
Yes, they are. I knew they weren't coming back.
Yeah, they were just. Oh, spoiler.
Well, duh.
But yeah, I mean that movie is just creepy. It's slowly paced. It's a very British horror film. It's very slow.
Yes.
It builds and it builds and it builds, but it's a good watch. It really is. It's fun.
Is.
Yeah, I actually forgot about it when we were talking about the whole creepy haunted dolls thing. It would have been a great modern movie, because you don't find a lot of modern movies about dolls, but that one is. It's really kind of creepy.
Kind of almost elements of the doll down south that.
Yes, yeah. Oh shoot, I forgot his name.
I did too. It just kind of went right out my mouth. Right out my. Excuse me. It did not come out my mouth, but it went right out of my brain.
Yeah, I forgot what it's called. But yeah, but a good movie. Did you watch it all the way through?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
yes, I did.
Kind of an interesting twist ending.
Yes, very much so. Cliffhanger.
Very much.
Making
very
room
much.
for the next one, probably.
Of course. Franchises. It's all about franchising.
Mm-hmm.
All about franchising.
It almost had a skeleton key element to it.
Yes, it did. And one of my favorite haunted house, quote unquote, movies of recent, besides The Conjuring, I love the skeleton key. I thought that was a very well done.
Oh, I liked
movie.
it too. Yes,
I did.
absolutely.
I liked it a lot. I really did. I was not exactly sober the first time I watched it, which made it even scarier.
I had to have 2 beers to go into the Conjuring movie, so...
I see that. Still 2 of my favorites. I do have to say I love what they did with the... we've had Andrea Perron on our show. Yes, very, very Hollywood, very, very... what's the word I'm looking for?
Artistic licensing going on?
Very, very, very much artistic licensing going on. It was very, psyched up. It was over the top, but still really good. I thought, I still think James Wan is a masterful storyteller. I really do. I think he kind of takes, the early Hitchcock. He is about cinematography and angles and making you feel like you're there. And Hitchcock was very much about that. And I do think that Wan does that. And I do like his filmmaking. I like The Conjuring. I like the Insidious movies. I think they're really good stories. And that's what I do like is he tells a story, but he's not gratuitous. There's not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of violence. There's not a lot of sex. It's just he tells a good story and he gives you good, honest to God, genuine jumps.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, what the F, and it's like, and you find yourself doing that in the theater. If you go see them in the theater, that's what, you're like,
Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, expletive, whatever.
Oh, excrement. Yes.
Oh, that one too. Yes. Oh, excrement, expletive, So, but
yes, I apologize for interrupting your day then, but I hope it was a tension breaker for you.
Oh, it was. Today was actually a good day. I last night wasn't feeling well yesterday. Needed a lot of rest, a lot of sleep, which I did get last night, and that helped.
Good.
Very well rested. Had a bit of a headache when I got up this morning, but I think that was the past couple weeks at work have been very stressful. But I've started seeing a lot of things. For me, when we're going to talk to an author tonight, for me, the work that I do from a sales standpoint and from a management standpoint, I have to see the progress. If I don't see the progress, I get frustrated.
Sure, I can understand.
And the past couple of weeks have been a lot of laying groundwork and not a lot of progress. We've been changing the format of one station. We've been adding new shows. We've been creating some local shows, and trying to build a website and all. And so there's been a lot of groundwork and not a lot of progress. And today, a lot of stuff kind of started coming to fruition. A lot of things started falling into place. Started seeing a lot of progress. So really, really happy about that. Been kind of campaigning behind the scenes in the town. The Chamber of Commerce has its annual awards banquet coming up in May, and I've been campaigning behind the scenes for my boss and the radio station. And I got the phone call today that he has been named Business Person of the Year for our area.
I see.
Yeah,
even though it's your work, kind of.
That I don't care because it's all about any exposure is good exposure. I much prefer being behind the scenes. I really do. I much prefer being the puppet master, not the puppet. So
just reciprocate in a pay raise, right?
Exactly, which I do get in May, and I'm very excited about that too.
Yay!
So, May's shaping up to be a really cool month, so I'm really happy about that. But it was funny. I called him today because he's not in town a whole lot. So I called him up to tell him that he was going to win this award because he has to be there to accept it. And he was like, "Oh, great! So what? Now they want to recognize me that I'm retiring and I'm no longer there on a regular basis. They couldn't do this for me 20 years ago." I'm like, it's still recognition. He said, "Can I decline it?" I'm like, "You can do whatever you want when you get up there. You can drop your pants and moon the entire chamber and the entire county. I don't care." I said, "I got you this award. I need you to get up there and get us the exposure that we need as a radio station. This is our 60th anniversary. We've been here 60 years. We've been providing news and entertainment and public service to the community for 60 years. We need to do this."
So there.
So that's kind of been my day. It's a good day. Long drive in. I hate that drive. Right. I'm really thinking about getting my own private pilot's license. Or, dabbling in witchcraft and flying a broom. I'm not sure.
It can get breezy on a broom. And if you've got rain, sleet, snow, lightning, that can mess up your whole day.
That can affect anything. So
that's true.
That affects up my driving. So, but we have a great show tonight. We have Linda Godfrey. She has been our guest many times. We'll be bringing her on in just a few moments. Yes. Next week, Nick Redfern, my favorite Limey.
Yes.
He's going to be coming on, talk about his new book, Secret Societies, which I got my copy today. Apparently, you did not get yours. What I'm going to do? I'm going to do something very quickly when we play the song. I'm going to go ahead and send you the link to the publisher, and have you request your own copy.
Oh, alrighty, okay.
Just in case, because I requested 2. I got mine. You didn't get yours. I was hoping that maybe best case scenario was they would have sent 2 to me and I could overnight yours. Right. But I'm going to send that to you in just a moment. But we got Nick Redfern next week, and finally, drum roll.
Yay.
Miracle of all miracles. I talked to Bill Bean. Bill has agreed to be our guest on the 26th.
All right.
So Bill will come back on. He's actually going to be joining us from Miami. I tried to convince him to let us join him in Miami. Yes. And he really didn't have a response to that.
Oh man, that's it. I'm speaking to him. I'll get him on Facebook chat.
I know. Obviously, you can. I told him. I have been trying to get a hold of this man for like a week and a half. I call and leave messages. Over the weekend, I get a text from you. "Man, you're missing out on the Facebook chat with Bill Bean." I'm like, "What the hell?" I try to call this man. I'm his agent. He's under contract with me. I can't get him. Wendy, she's chatting him up on Facebook.
Well, yeah, it's easy.
I see how it goes. I don't know. I'm at a loss. I really am. So
it'd be all right. I think he was trying to get your attention, but since I don't have a real life, it was me he caught.
Well, this weekend was a very busy weekend. My daughter, we've talked in the previous weeks. My daughter, who is 12, or she'll be 13 in July. She keeps reminding me, which I really hate.
Yeah.
That she will be, she's going to be 13 in July, and she is in a college production. She's in a college play, and she tried out. She got 4 speaking roles. They're not starring roles, major roles, but she has 4 speaking roles in a college play, which is pretty damn good. I know a lot of college students that don't get that. Anyway, she had opening night was Friday night. Ended about 11 o'clock. We got back to my place. We did a toast with sparkling grape juice. I gave her some roses, because that's what you do to divas when they're in plays. You give them roses and you toast them. So we toasted with they had sparkling grape juice. I had wine. And then Saturday morning, I'm thinking I'm going to get to sleep a little bit. She comes into the bedroom and she's like, "Hey, Dad, I got a pool party at 2:00. Like, the pool's not open. Pool doesn't open till Memorial Day here. She's like, "No, the college pool. It's indoors." She goes, "There's a pool party." I'm like, "Okay." She's like, so I roll back over. She's like, "I got my matinee on Sunday at 2. I said, "I know." She's like, "That means we're not going to get to have our big breakfast that we normally have." I said, "I know." She's like, "Can we have it today?" I'm like, "Do you want breakfast?" She's like, "Yeah, your breakfast is yummy." So we go. So how do you say no to this? We go to the grocery store, we buy groceries, we come back, we have, scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, toast, crescent rolls, fresh fruit, orange juice, all kinds of stuff. Then she goes to the pool party. Then she has She has to be at the play at 6, plays at 8, ends at 11. Then she has the matinee at 2. Then there's a carnival at 5 that doesn't end until 9. It was a busy weekend.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, a lot of
Kept you out
running.
of trouble.
No, actually, it didn't. There was a beer garden at the carnival.
Oh no!
So yes, there was. So I stayed there. Nice little chained-in area, kind of like being a gerbil in a cage. Going over to the little water bottle. You just go over $3, bottle of beer. It was funny. There was a college student because we're in Southwest Virginia, and there was a college student from like outside the area, from like out west, and he's like, "This is not my idea of a beer garden." He said, "I don't see Heineken and Corona being in a beer garden." I said, "It's Southwest Virginia. This is ethnically diverse. We have the Dutch and the Mexicans in one barrel."
Dang. That's almost like my heritage, right?
Exactly. And then in between the two of them was Sam Adams. It does not get more American than that.
No, it does not.
It is a melting pot like you would not believe. Heineken, Sam Adams, Corona.
I love it.
We've got Linda Godfrey has a new book out. I've got it here in front of me. Monsters Among Us. She has no idea. We're going to bring her on. We're going to talk about this for the next hour and a half, and some of her other work. She's got some very interesting stories in here. This one reads a little bit like 365 Days of UFOs. It's almost like you can just pick and choose the stories that you want to read. It's more vignettes than it is.
Yes.
No one chapter is any one story. It's divided into themes, and so you can just pick and choose. So really cool stuff. But you've got a great cool song that you're going to play.
I do. I believe.
And then.
Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, and then we're going to get Linda on, and we're going to come in, and we'll be talking about all this fun stuff here in just a few minutes. Yes.
Yes. Alrighty then. I will start the song, Clap for the Wolfman by the Guess Who. It'll be about 5 minutes, but that'll give Travis time to get Linda on the line and chat her up a bit. And, alright, Clap for the Wolfman.
Smoking. Somebody stop me. Ow. Just loosening up for a song about a friend of ours. He was a show business icon. He was a rock and roll pioneer. He was a legendary disc jockey. He was the host of the Midnight Special. And he was a good friend of ours. He was the Wolfman. We got one, we got two, we got 1, 2, 3. She said, no, no, no. Romance ain't keeping me alive. Said, hey, babe, do you want to She said, So I was left out in the cold. Said, yeah. she was digging you, but she was digging me. Yeah, clap for the Wolfman. He gonna rate your record high. As long as you got the curves, baby, I got the angles. Clap for the Wolfman. He gonna dig it till the day you die. It's all according to how your boogling situation stands. You understand? Clap for the Wolfman. He gonna rate your record high. You ain't gonna get him 'cause I got him. Yeah. Clap for the Wolfman. He gonna dig it till the day you die. You might wanna try, but I gonna keep him. Yeah. Clap for the Wolfman. Clap for the Wolfman. Clap for the Wolfman. Clap for the Wolfman. Yeah. Clap for the Wolfman. Yeah. Clap for the Wolfman. Yeah, yeah.
And that was Clap for the Wolfman by the Guess Who. I know it was actually a tribute to Wolfman Jack, but it still fits our theme for this evening. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Hey, Wendy.
Hey there. I gotta find a way to make that audible for you guys. I was jamming.
I know. I want to hear it. I can't. You have to send me you'll have to send me the MP3 just so I can listen. While
You work at a radio station, Travis. Can't you pull it up?
Oh, I probably could if I wanted to take time out of my busy day and not talk about The Boy with somebody who's watching it on demand or whatever, and I get these Facebook messages. This movie is creepy as hell.
Yeah. What's up with this?
I know. Any movie called The Boy that's about a creepy doll in a British mansion with two old British,
Fuddy-duddies.
paternal, fuddy-duddy, is going to be creepy, Wendy. It's just going to happen. It really is. We've got Linda Godfrey with us. Linda has been with us many times, and we love having her on the show. She is always just not only delightful, but she always brings interesting perspectives to urban myths, especially from a cryptid standpoint, dealing with dog men and wolf men and werewolves and lizard men and mothman. We've explored basically the chupacabra. We've explored the spectrum on the show with Linda, and she is just so much fun. She's entertaining, enlightening, just all kinds of fun. And she has a new book out, and actually, we were talking. She's got, from the sound of it, you're working on another one. But this one, which Wendy and I just got, and we've had the opportunity to read quite a bit of it, Monsters Among Us by Linda S. Godfrey. An exploration of otherworldly Bigfoots, wolfmen, portals, phantoms, and odd phenomena. And I really don't think you could have added any. I think you kind of cover everything in that subtitle, Linda. I don't think we missed anything.
No, it's meant to be all inclusive. That's for sure.
It definitely is. Now, I'm going to read your bio as it's printed on the book. Linda Godfrey is one of America's foremost authorities on modern day monsters. Now, we've had this conversation before. You don't actually like the term monsters and cryptids. You have a different term, and we'll talk about that in a second. But she is the foremost authorities on modern day monsters. She is the author of more than a dozen books on werewolves, hauntings, and the paranormal, including Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America, American Monsters, A History of Monster Lore, Legends, and Sightings in America, and Weird Michigan. She has appeared on many national TV shows such as Monster Quest, one of my favorites, Inside Edition, and Hannity, and has been a guest on radio shows such as Coast to Coast AM. I've been on there. George Norrie is the phenomenal host. I long to be George Norrie. I'm trying to grow the mustache. I mean, I have the mustache and goatee. I just don't have Norrie's mustache. I want that mustache. That is my goal as a broadcast journalist, is to have Norrie's mustache. But shut up, Wendy. Don't laugh at me.
I have to.
Now, this book, again, I'm reading from the back cover. mysterious wolf people, sentient mists, and UFOs. Oh my, I love it. If you've ever heard an inexplicable bump in the night, Wendy heard some today. It doesn't have to be at night. She heard some today. Caught a glimpse of a strange-looking someone or something, and out of the corner of your eye, or even an unusual craft dart across the sky before it vanishes without a trace, there's only one person to call. Linda S. Godfrey, author of numerous books that offer rare reporting on Bigfoots, werewolves, strange energy forms, and other bizarre beings. Now, Linda, again, first of all, thank you for being on this.
Whoops.
Okay, that could not have been better time.
Yeah, he's supposed to be being dog wrangled by my husband and my son, and they're both sitting down on the job somewhere.
No, that was perfect.
He's got a blood-curdling howl. If only you could see him. He's this little fluff ball.
I swear to God, I thought Wendy had queued up a sound effect. I really did.
Well, I'll rent him out to you for sound effect recordings if you like. No problem.
That's too funny. No, first of all, just thank you. I mean, we've loved having you on the show in the past. Very excited to talk about the new book. One of the things, Wendy and I talked about this the other day, one of the things that I love about having you on the show is you really bridge the world between the paranormal investigator and the mainstream journalist. And that's what I like, because you started out as a mainstream journalist who got a story. And as most journalists do, you followed it to its natural end, and then you kept going. You didn't stop. You just kept going. So by way of introduction, since we're on a new platform, we have new listeners, we have a new audience, tell us a little bit about that story, The Beast of Bray Road, which is kind of what launched you from mainstream journalist to the Carl Kolchak. One of my favorite TV shows. I own every episode on DVD. And yes, Night Stalker, and actually what got me as a kid interested in the paranormal and the unusual, because what I loved about Kolchak was that he was just a dogged journalist who just happened to find himself always bumped up against a story that had a supernatural undertone. And the same thing happened to you.
Right. Yeah, it was most unexpected. I actually only became the reporter at that newspaper because I wanted to do editorial cartoons for them. And I had done that for a while, and one day one of their reporters quit, and they were in kind of a bind, and by then they figured I could write a little bit. I don't think they knew whether I could type or not at the time. But seriously. But I thought, sure, this would be fun. And what you know, within a couple of weeks of starting for them, and this was way, way back in like 1991, 92, the dark stone ages, I started hearing rumors that people out on this 3-mile or so long country road just outside of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, which was my hometown, were seeing what they were calling a werewolf, for lack of a better word. And it happened that I was working with the county animal control officer on a story about puppy mills that he was trying to break. And I went to see him in his office, and I said, by the way, have you heard anybody talking about something like a werewolf out on Bray Road? And he said, oh, yeah. And he opens up his file drawer, and he pulls out this manila file folder. And lo and behold, I kid you not, it was labeled werewolf. Now, I knew at that moment, when you've got a county official with a manila file folder in his office labeled werewolf, and then it wasn't, as I half expected, to be full of jokes. It was full of actual people who were calling him or writing him and saying, hey, I saw this thing. I don't know what it was, but if there was such a thing as a werewolf, that's what it looked like. And leaving their contact information. That I thought was kind of serious because, pranksters and hoaxers don't usually leave all their contact information because they don't want to be charged with fraud or bugged or whatever. And he let me take those names and contact the people, and I discovered They didn't strike me as liars or anything like that. And I went ahead and wrote it up. There was quite an assortment. I didn't even, put them all in that first story. I think I had like 6. And the next thing I knew, although they were originally anonymous, the other local TV stations and other places followed the same steps I did, got the names, and were soon interviewing them on TV shows. And it went national just from that original story that I wrote. And I titled it The Beast of Bray Road because I was not at that time, nor am I now, convinced that they were actual literal werewolves spawning by biting other people and, coming out under the full moon and needing silver bullets to be killed, all that sort of thing. I thought there must be some other explanation. But I thought it was great alliteration, so I called it The Beast of Bray Road, and it was national in 2 weeks without anything having the ability to go viral. There was virtually no internet as we know it today. Mm-hmm. It was there, but not like what we have now by any means. And it just sort of exploded, and I was doing radio shows from, one coast to another. There were people calling me, writing me, telling me they'd seen it, they knew what it was. It was just kind of crazy. There were there were busloads of tourists coming from Illinois to partake of silver bullet specials and tour Bray Road. The local bakery was selling werewolf cookies. It was just unbelievable. And I worked for that newspaper for 10 years, and during that time, really, it was all still coming to me in terms of mail and reports, but nothing much was happening, and I wasn't really writing on it or anything like that. And I finally decided after 10 years, if there was that much interest in it after a decade, that I probably should write a book about it and get everything down correctly, and have the whole thing in one place. And I actually wrote another book first, The Poisoned Widow, a true story of sin, strychnine, and murder about a 1920s murder that happened also in Walworth County, not all that far from where the Bray Road events took place. And the publisher liked that one and said, "What have you got next?" And I said, "Well, would you believe," and I use the term loosely, werewolves. And they liked it. So, and actually, it's not just like a book of scary things. I meant that book to be as much of a historic and sociological commentary on what the town and its residents went through when you've got a monster mania happening suddenly and unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. So it has that aspect too. And I think maybe that's why it's in its second edition. It's still in print and available and doing well. So I think people liked that turn. And the thing was, once that came out, that whole snowball effect happened again, where all of a sudden I got this whole new range of people who had seen it, more people calling me, and it still happens every time I put a book out. And The Monsters Among Us was number 17 of my published books, and the new one will be 18. So, I have this constant influx. I still get, and I'll just wind it up right here, it's been 25 years now, Travis and Wendy, and I still receive an average of 1 to 3 reports of different types a week, which if you do the math, it's an astounding number. And that's even though there are lots of other people now. Within the past, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years, the concept of a possible dog man or upright canine has suddenly been accepted. And, there are other shows and people writing about it, and that's great. The more, the merrier. But I'm still getting these reports, and I'm still trying to make associations and connections and find out why people are seeing them. That's what drives me ever since that very first discovery of the manila file folder is, why are people seeing these things? What could they be? Because none of the accepted explanations make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you said several things. I was trying to jot down some things I wanted to come back and actually address. First, coming at it, first you are an artist, as you mentioned. You started out wanting to do some of the graphics and cartoons and animation and things like that for the newspaper, but you ended up being a journalist and covering the story, and you came upon something that obviously had, pardon the pun, legs, whether two or four or whatever, it had legs. I mean, there, you and I have talked about Mothman and the research that I've done in Mothman, and when you look at eyewitness accounts, you take into account a lot of different things. You take into account the age of that person, the mental capacity of that person, whether or not that person is indulging in substances, whether legal or illegal. So you look at all these things, and when you weed out the bad, and you're still left with a preponderance of positive, that you go, okay, these cannot be explained away. These are people, as you mentioned, as you have mentioned several times, even to the point of like forestry and wildlife officials who saw things. And these are individuals. Yeah, these are sheriff's deputies. These are individuals who know people, but they're individuals who know animals. That's what they are trained to know. They're trained to know domestic animals. They're trained to know the difference between domestic and wild, feral. They and when they see something they can't identify and they can't categorize, then you have to step back and say, what is happening here? What are people seeing? And that kind of just spiraled and
so there I think I lost you.
No, I said that kind of spiraled and catapulted you into exploring all of the other, as the book cover says, monsters, cryptids, but you have a different term that you use.
Well, there are a couple of different monsters. Isn't quite so bad. The one I really try to avoid in the actual writing, although publishers love to have it on the cover, is werewolves. Because as I said, I don't think these things are werewolves. But so I have a couple of words. I'm not sure which one you're intending. So you'll have to clue me in here a little bit, and then I can talk about it.
Well, you talk about, I think, mysterious creatures is the term that you use.
Yeah, I probably use that more often. And again, monsters is one of those sort of attention-getting words that publishers love in a title. And by the way, when you have a regulation publisher, as I do, they get to pick the title. Not many people are aware of that. And they have the final say, so it's right in the contract. And face it, more people are going to be attracted to and open their eyes at the word monster than they are at creatures. There's a reason that those big trucks are called monster trucks and not creature trucks.
Right.
It's just a lot more inviting or to contemplate the monster, more exciting. So, yeah, but a lot of those pictures or a lot of those titles are sort of useful in that they create word pictures. And, for instance, werewolves, there's a lot wrong with that. It has all the Hollywood baggage and that sort of thing in my mind. It's not at all accurate according to what these people are seeing. But you instantly get this mind shot of a canine, wolf-like looking thing on its hind legs, walking along, the canine eye shine glowing at you. That's pretty close to what most people report. So even that does have its uses.
Yeah, well, I think, monster, coming from a marketing standpoint, is much more attention grabbing than anything else. But it does carry with it negative connotations as far as things being nefarious, things being malevolent, things causing danger and harm and attacking. Now, and this is an extremely appropriate conversation because we're actually in a full moon cycle. But the stories that you have covered, you don't really see these, I'm going to use entities or creatures, you don't see them actually causing harm or attacking.
Not in the reports that I've received. No, I'm aware that there are a few others out there that some people have gotten where they have some gory incidents. I tend not to comment on those too much because they're not ones that I've personally explored, and I like to leave it to those who did investigate them, to live or die by their own words, basically. So I stick to the ones that I personally receive as reports. And in 25 years, I've only received one where actual blood was drawn. And that was, I've told this story a lot of times, and it's in at least one of my books, but it was a man from Quebec up in Canada. And I do get more and more reports from Canada, by the way. But this guy was just walking on a forest trail, unarmed, no gun, and all of a sudden he came face to face with an over 6 foot tall, upright, wolf-like creature that was looking at him menacingly. And the creature made a lunge toward him. And if you can imagine the panic, I mean, your body would just go into panic mode. And have you ever been in a supermarket where you're pushing a cart and someone else's and you don't know which way to push the cart and you end up both kind of pushing it at each other? Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of what happened in the way that he described it. He said he meant to be jumping out of the way and it was kind of lunging that way and he felt it was more his fault. But it had its mouth open and fangs bared, and it grazed his side and flank as it went past him, kind of tore his shirt and tore this jagged cut in his side. And he said he had to go back and go to the hospital. It wasn't deep or anything, it's superficial, so he wasn't afraid of bleeding to death. But it needed stitches, and he told them it was a bear because he knew they would never accept what it really was. And he did send me a photo. I had it up on the Beast of Bray Road website for a long time. I'm not sure it's still on there. That site is just crumbling like an ancient tower of some sort because I built it with very archaic equipment, and I don't have anything I can repair it with. So I'm trying to just move it other places. But that little photo was there. I should dig it up and post it again. And you can't prove what it was just by looking at the photo, but I have shown it to at least one surgeon who said it was consistent with something jagged like a fang, a rounded fang pointed on the end. So, and I believe the guy. His story just had this real ring of truth to it. I mean, how many people are going to paint themselves as, just kind of clumsily dodging the wrong way and then just getting, jagged in the hip as the thing went by. But that is the only one. There have been other people who were chased at close range and who thought for sure they were going to die, and then at the last second, the creature always just runs off into the brush. And something that does recur again and now that I'm looking at, because it seems to happen more and more frequently, is that people will report they're being chased. They can almost feel the hot breath. They hear the thumps behind them. And they'll just, in their fright, cry out to a higher power of it, whatever it is for them, to save them. And that's when the creature disappears. So I'm particularly, and I've got several incidents like that in Monsters Among Us, especially if you read the chapter on the Chicago Bigfoot. It ended that way. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm kind of looking into also, because one of my main reasons for that book was there did seem to be cropping up these certain types of anomalous events or phenomena that went along with the sightings. And I wanted to really focus on those associations and see if they could be connected in any way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find it interesting that, like, listening to some other shows and things, how a lot of people want to attach a demonic substance to it. Want to make it evil, want to make it sinister. And I'm not sure that that's correct, but I think being frightened of something moving that fast and that it's so out of the ordinary that, that's just how their mind deals with it.
Right. And the other people who get really scared are the ones who have it show up and peer in their window, which happens quite a bit more than you would think, both with the Dogman and with Bigfoot. They both seem to do that. They both seem to like to peek into sheds and barns to see, probably to see if there are livestock in there, is my guess. Mm-hmm. Because I think they are looking for easy prey above all. Not so much in the terms of humans, but dogs, cats, chickens, things that people have, or even horses that they have around their properties.
Well, like a normal predator would with the...
Right.
Right. Wasn't that one of your... That was one of your stories where the army guy was out in the field or they were out on, I think they call that bivouac, out camping, practicing their army stuff, and he was inside of a... yes, I jumped just a little bit. But, Right. It would have had to have been 8 or 9 foot in the air to be peering in this window of the truck he was in.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one in Wolfsag, Germany.
Okay,
that does bring up the point. These are not just, in America and Canada and South America. They're national. It's all over the world.
Right. All right, I lost my... You still there, Travis?
I'm here. I was going to say, backtracking just a second, but I think still very, very poignant to what we're discussing. Mm-hmm. At the very beginning of the book, Linda, you have a prelude before we even get into talking about specific monsters and creatures and mysterious entities and things like that. You talk about a specific location called Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. That was something I was not familiar with, and I kind of pride myself on being a geek when it comes to cryptids and the paranormal and the supernatural, but I wasn't familiar with Skinwalker Ranch. Fill us in on that, because this place was like a veritable crossroads of paranormal activity.
Right, yeah. This was a ranch in Utah that was purchased by a man who wanted nothing but to raise prize cattle on this tract of land that looked perfect. And there had been several different Native American tribes that lived around there. The Utes were one that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. And the thing was, there was supposed to have been some sort of very ancient curse. And it was supposed to be land that certain shape-shifting medicine men would call their own, and it was not supposed to be lived on by other people. So this family bought it. They moved in this wonderful herd of cattle that they had, and almost immediately really weird things started happening. Like they're out in their farmyard one day, and there's a calf there, and they see this huge, large, black, dog-like creature come out and look at the calf. It looks to them. It comes right up to them. They're kind of taken with what a beautiful, magnificent beast is. And just as they're about to go to pet it, it turns around and grabs this calf and starts to make off with the calf, And it was just something that no ordinary animal would do. It was just too weird. And it got weirder and weirder. They would see actual portals in the, like a hole in the sky, mm-hmm. with a different colored sky beyond that. And then there would be these black furry creatures that would seem to come out of the portals that would be walking around. They'd put up trail cameras. Nothing worked to record anything. There would be weird anomalous lights. And then this place was purchased by a very wealthy gentleman, and he stocked it after the family moved out. He brought in some top-notch scientists and also the most cutting-edge detection equipment that he could find, and set them up, and their job was just to surveil the place. And even they could not get things to record on the trail cameras, but they also witnessed some really hair-raising adventures. And there's a very good book on the subject that fills you in completely. And the reason that I put this in there was, A, to introduce the idea that these creatures seem to kind of go hand in hand with all these other sorts of phenomena that were happening, and to sort of introduce the mini Skinwalker Ranch that was discovered right here in southeastern Wisconsin several years ago, when a retired math and physics teacher from Illinois bought some land for a hayfield, not by Bray Road, but kind of out in that direction, and started experiencing the same sorts of things on this small acreage that he had. And he got a hold of me to help him figure out what it was, and I've been assisting him for over 3 years now, and the weird things are still occurring, and so many of them just have direct parallels with that Skinwalker Ranch. And I just was so taken by the fact that here we have opposite, north and south areas of the country. We're finding almost the exact same phenomena, much smaller scale in the Wisconsin one for sure, but the same sorts of things happening. And I started wondering if this was a universal thing, if you could find these little pockets of really scary strangeness in many other spots. And That's really the heart of what I'm trying to address here, is how prevalent are these types of associations between the creatures and things like UFOs, lights, seeming lights in the or portals in the sky, that sort of thing. And it makes it a little bit different than my other books for that reason.
No, absolutely. I mean, to read, Wendy and I were talking before you came on. This one of your books, this one we had Nick Redfern on a couple of months ago. He has a book out, 365 Days of UFOs, and it's very much a tabletop, a coffee table kind of book where you just pick it up and you can read any one page or any one couple of pages, and you get 3 or 4 different vignettes. And this book actually is very much like that. You pick it up, you open a chapter, and you get 2, 3, maybe even 4 different stories about supernatural paranormal phenomena. I mean, just looking at the titles of the different sections of the books, you don't really pigeonhole yourself into any one paranormal event. Section 1, Worlds Below. Section 2, Neither Man Nor Beast. Section 3, Things That Make House Calls, which I find extremely interesting. And Wendy will too. Wendy will too, since she's taking up house sitting. Number 4, Creatures of Shadows, Mists, and Lights. And then Section 5, Out of Thin Air, Creatures, UFOs, and Portals. So, I mean, you really do take all of these different paranormal events, paranormal phenomena, and you kind of show this cross-section, this intersection, if you will, of how they all kind of do come together. Almost at a paranormal crossroads. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that states it pretty well, I think.
Very much so.
Looking at some of the things that you do undertake in this particular book, there are several, but one of the ones that I found interesting in the very first section, you talk about hellmouths. And hellmouths I'm familiar with. It's that kind of that. Shut up, Wendy. You could take that.
I was going to Buffy. I'm a Buffy fan.
Yeah.
Always have been.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but it I was going to say you could take that so many ways. Those being basically kind of portals to the underworld. And one of the things I think you do a very interesting job of is showing, in especially Judeo-Christian religion, we view hellmouths as a way to go down, a way to enter into hell. But you talk about them being a portal out of hell for things from another, not necessarily hell, but things from another world or another dimension to come into our world.
Well, it does seem to work that way, and I mean from. Whether it's the Christian view of hell being down below, or you can go to the Greek myths, that sort of thing, where the hero has to go down into this mythic underworld and achieve some task. That's the older view, but it does seem like the newer stories, there are things coming back out. It's something to look out for. And people have this idea that if they see, and I think a lot of this comes from TV and movies, where because anything involving a portal is very popular. You see that just in show after show. They're almost taken for granted, and the fictional ones all involve people being able to just hop into one. Buffy and Angel were famous for that. And I'd always be amazed. There'd be this portal, and we're like, okay, we don't know if we can breathe in there. We don't know if something's going to eat us. We don't know if we would just fry to a crisp the second we walked in, but we're going to hop in. And they always make it in, and then they make it back out. And sometimes things do come out of those hellmouths and pursue them or whatever. But that seems to be more the way that it is now. To give you a good example, my friends Chad Lewis and Noah Voss and Kevin Nelson put together an investigation and a book called The Van Meter Visitor in Van Meter, Iowa. They uncovered this kind of turn-of-the-century incident where this old mining town had this mine that had been abandoned for a long time, and all of a sudden this strange Mothman-like creature came out of it one day and just literally paralyzed this. I combined paralyzed and terrified for
I like
terrified.
It's a new word.
I like that. Yeah,
it worked out. Yeah, that's basically what it did to the town. They didn't know what to do with it. The business owners were sitting up at night with rifles out the windows. They were fighting it by every means possible. And when they finally got enough of it and had kind of a midnight march to the mine, they were going to drive it out. Lo and behold, 2 of them flew out of the mine. Maybe out of the mind. Maybe that was a Freudian. I don't know. I need a glass of water, I think, here. But 2 of them flew out and flew away. They were never seen again. But it's an extraordinary. If anybody gets a chance, I highly recommend to pick up that book, because there aren't many stories like that where people have such repeated close-up and ongoing views of something like that. And then to find out that there were 2, that implies a breeding population or something going on. But these things came up out of this deep, deep mine that nobody had been in for a long time. And I thought it was just a very good illustration of that. The more contemporary idea of down below as being where things are escaping from and coming to us.
You know, it's funny that you bring up mines and that kind of terror. You know, growing up in the portion of Virginia and Kentucky and West Virginia where I live, in that little section, the coal mine industry. Shut up. Yes, no, not. I'm as far away from Walton's Mountain as you can be in Virginia, and still say you're in Virginia.
Okay.
I'm closer to 5 other state capitals than I am my own.
Okay.
But growing up, knowing that my dad, because my dad was a coal miner, so he was going in the ground, he was going underground, and being raised in an evangelical, Judeo-Christian upbringing, you're taught underground is where hell is. That's where the bad people go. That's where the demons are. That's where the monsters are. So knowing that my dad was constantly going down there was terrifying enough. But there was a movie, and I have tried over and over again to find this movie because I don't remember what the title was. I remember watching it with an older cousin back in the early 80s, and it was about a coal mining town, and they stumbled upon these monsters in the coal mine. And these monsters had tentacles, but they walked, they had legs, but they had tentacles, and they were attacking the coal miners, and they were killing them. And I remember being terrified of that. As a kid. I mean, I was very young in the early 80s. We're talking 7, 8, 9 years old, and seeing that and knowing that my dad was down there, knowing my dad was, that there was in my young child's mind that there was the potential for that to happen. That's a terrifying kind of thought process for someone to go through, especially when we look at, and then now, being in my 40s and still living in this area, knowing that there are that many abandoned coal mines, it's like, what the hell's down there? What the hell did they cover up? What's down there waiting to get out and waiting to come up? And it really is kind of like this breeding bed for horror ideas and stories and movies and all of those things, because it really does kind of play on that underworld mythos that we're raised with.
Right. And it's actually what shocked me when I was writing this book was I was kind of looking for things with tunnels associated. And it's really surprising how much tunnel square footage there is under just about any sized American city. Because you had all the steam tunnels from the old big steam heaters that used to be there. There will be, like Los Angeles has abandoned, miles and miles of abandoned subways down there. There's a huge abandoned tunnel in southeastern Wisconsin, which is I know a sheriff's deputy who has seen upright wolfmen around that area twice. And there have been other things, black panthers, large birds. And it was going to be a major World War II airport, kind of strategically located to protect Milwaukee and Chicago. And for some reason, they finished the tunnels, and just before the concrete airport was to be poured, the whole thing got the kibosh put on it. And they closed up the tunnels, kind of, but people could still get in there. And I know people that in the 70s were going, I mean, I didn't know them at the time, but they've told me they went to lots of parties where things were smoked down, and it was famous for that at that time. And the local lore goes that when they were going to finish that tunnel off, the workmen started seeing things in that tunnel that they couldn't deal with, and that was supposedly what made them change their mind about building the tunnel. I don't think that's the actual official reason, but of course that's the local legend to it. But there are many very strange things that happen around it, and you cannot get in that tunnel anymore, but like I said, until recent times you could, and people would report seeing some very odd things around it.
Very interesting.
Now, that leads me to a particular story. I think it's let me get the book here. It's still in the first section. It's chapter 2, the Torrance werewolf, which deals with underground, deals with the tunnel. But it also deals with the whole concept of a bipedal creature, a werewolf, a wolfman, a dogman, whatever. But you actually, in that chapter, if I'm not mistaken, you mention how that you are very reluctant to talk about the shape-shifting perspective of these creatures. But this one story in particular, based on the eyewitness account, you leave the door open.
Right, definitely, because the woman who reported it was younger. She was in elementary school, and her older brother, and she both saw and witnessed this thing. But I had extensive interviews with her. I had somebody who I knew who happened to be in LA actually went to the site and cross-checked everything she said with what was there, and every single detail worked out. And it wasn't a place that she lived or anything. She just happened to have visited a laundromat there with her mother in her childhood and hadn't been back to it in all that time. So everything checked out. I didn't have a reason not to believe her. And again, my reason for doing this book was to be sure that I wasn't ignoring inconvenient truths in the witness stories and just letting them tell exactly what they experienced and saw, and then just dealing with that account. But what she saw was what she described as a square manhole the lid was propped up, and a man was standing on some steps or a ladder or something, looking at her and beckoning toward her to come over by him, which she was very reluctant to do, luckily. And as she drew close to the man, she said to her shock, he began to actually start to transform rather like those Hollywood werewolves, where she was seeing the snout come out and the hands changed into claws, and he was wearing this kind of white old style shirt that seemed to be kind of straining, and he was saying something like, no, not now, not now. And he knew her name, and he said, Jennifer, come here. He was still trying to get her to come over there, and that stopped her short again, because she knew her brother hadn't used her name or called it. How would he know her name? She had never seen him before. And I was thinking things like, well, see, my husband happens to be a civil engineer who knows things like sewers and manholes. And I said, well, there wouldn't be a square manhole cover, would there? Because he'd always said that most manhole covers are round because it's the only shape that can be just a little larger and still not fall in. And he said, well, by the buildings like where she was, yeah, there's a square type they use for utility, steps down to utility areas, and it was called the blah, blah, blah. He had a name for it and everything. And sure enough, that whole thing checked out. But it's interesting because to have a child remember something like that, and then I've had other sewer things come up. If you go to my blog, which is just lindagodfrey.com, no WWs, you'll see one of the most recent posts is called the Minot sewer werewolves, or werewolves in the sewers of Minot, something like that, North Dakota. And it's a sort of similar story that came to me some time ago, and I'd misplaced it until we moved recently, and I found it between a couple of file folders. And so since I had it, I put that in there. But it's just another, once you start opening yourself, and I wondered, had I missed other stories, just because in my own bias, I had previously thought, well, that can't be, so, I'm not probably going to report this one. And I know I've mentioned that incident briefly in a couple of books, but I didn't really remember enough about it, the Minot one, to post it, and now it is. So you can go to lindagodfrey.com and see that other one. But yeah, and Los Angeles is one of the most tunnel-ridden cities that could ever be. They've got the connecting state parks there, or city parks. There was a park that was a zoo and needed tunnels for the animals. Many miles of subway, which until recently, and perhaps even now, there's a place where you're supposed to be able to get down into those old subways and explore them. And then most interesting of all, if you're a fan of Ancient Aliens, this is a story that sounds like it's straight out of that. Back in the, I think it was the 1930s, I don't have it right in front of me, but a gentleman who claimed to be an engineer with a special machine that could detect metal and treasure under the earth, and another man who said he was a Hopi chief, had found an old Hopi legend that referenced a very ancient tribe called the Lizard People. And according to the Hopi lore, which as far as I know is that's a real thing, these Lizard People were very advanced compared to the other Native Americans of their day. This was 3,000 years ago. And they had all kinds of technology that the others didn't, and were just said to be different, although there wasn't anything specific. And supposedly, 3,000 years ago, they were afraid that some sort of big Armageddon-type battle was coming, and they had some sort of a formula for a caustic material that could bore out large caverns without having to drill or pick away rock or anything. And they did this, and they carved out this huge cavern that runs from the LA Library down to one of the parks, and it's in the shape of a lizard, according to this man. And they actually got permission from the city of Los Angeles. And this is all in the newspapers. This wasn't made up stuff. And this was before the internet and any idea of this idea that there were ancient people doing things. This was just part of Hopi legend. So they were allowed to dig, and either they hit the wrong spot or didn't go far enough, or there wasn't anything. But finally they were made to stop because they weren't bringing up any artifacts, and these two gentlemen just left. But I've always thought that somebody steeped in Southwestern anthropology might really be able to do some good work here and find out about those people, and if there is more to it, something beyond my particular scope.
It sounds like a real good path to follow for those particular specialist type people.
Right. It would take some special digging, no pun intended.
Right. Literally and not theoretically.
Yes.
I'm losing my words tonight. I apologize.
Nope. Oh, I had the same problem, but yeah. Literally and metaphorically both. Right.
There we go. Thank you. Yes.
So I hope that answered the question.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because actually, when you were talking about the tunnels, I was flipping through trying to find the section of the book where you do talk about the lost lizard people of Los Angeles, and it actually was a segment on Ancient Aliens. They did do a segment on that.
Oh, was it? And I missed that.
Yeah, it is, and it's a very interesting segment. That was actually my first encounter with with that whole story.
Oh, okay. How long ago was?
A couple of years, actually.
Oh, okay. Wow, probably
just a couple of years.
I was looking
but
up.
I mean, yeah. But with Ancient Aliens has, you're looking at season 8, 9, maybe even 10. I mean, it's. I mean, Giorgio Tsoukalos, he's my man crush, actually. If I had a crush, it's Giorgio Tsoukalos. It's just, he's done an amazing job with it. He started out as a single, supposed to have been a one-time event for the History Channel, and he turned it into, a 10-season, just juggernaut of a paranormal investigation and research, and he even had spinoffs, dealing with the UFOs and other unusual events in Mesoamerica. So just an amazing story in entertainment. You do just an amazing job yourself of weaving together all of these paranormal events, to kind of bring them almost to a head, to bring them to one kind of conclusive / inconclusive, you trying to show that there is possibly something else going on. One of the things that I do find interesting, most of your books don't have a lot of photographs. Some artist rendering, but not a lot of actual photographs. And I'm flipping through. There's one section in your book where you are dealing with mists on a trail camera.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about how this is something that does occur many times when individuals actually, you talk about it at the Skinwalker Ranch. They would put out trail cameras, and things would happen, but there would be absolutely nothing on the camera. There would either be a mist, or there would be white noise or static, but definitely something happened in the time frame that the camera was rolling. And I'm trying to find the particular section in the book, and I can't. I should have marked it earlier, and I didn't.
That was actually happening at that farm field.
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah, and there were pictures of that.
Wolf's Egg?
That's it. Yeah. No, this is Mysterious Creatures, Mister. This is the same section where you have play Misty for me. I love your play on words. This is chapter 18, Mysterious Creatures. Willies of the Field is one story. Paw Prints from Nowhere, play Misty for me. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different trail cameras that show this mist just basically forming out of nowhere.
Right, and
there's a deer carcass, and then the mist dissipates.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just like in a column, and everything. There's a deer lying there. A road-killed deer was lying there by the tree line, and the camera's been on probably for I don't know how many hours, and it's daylight. This is not a nighttime thing, where you're playing with shadows or anything like that. It's broad daylight, and all of a sudden, this columnar-shaped mist forms right over the deer and obscures it. You can see where the deer's legs are sticking out in all the other frames, and then all of a sudden you can't because this mist is over it. Well, the mist goes away in about half an hour, numerous photographs later, but when the mist goes away, the deer is also gone. And the owner and a friend of his came and found this, and were just astounded because there were very deep, very large canine prints leading away. It had to have stepped over or through somehow a barbed wire fence with this deer probably on its shoulder because there were no drag marks and there were no front paw marks. And they tracked it entirely through this other field until they got to the road, and then they lost where it had gone. But the trail cam should have been able to show whatever took that. But it didn't. Whatever took that somehow had the ability to obscure its activity with a mist and, hoist the deer however it did and walk away without anything showing up on the cameras.
And it's not possible that the deer hopped away, how they can leap
This deer
tall
was
buildings.
dead.
Yeah, okay. It was dead?
No, it was quite dead, unless it was a zombie deer. Unless it was a zombie deer.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
And then we're dealing with something else entirely.
That we are.
Zombies. So, but I love The Walking Dead. There you go.
Yep, so there you go.
The Walking Dead deer, I don't think so.
Lord, I hope not.
It had been there too long.
Mm-hmm.
I know hunters have shot deers and had them leap up and run off, but this one was pretty dead.
Okay, all right.
When I read that chapter, one of the things that sprung to my mind was back in the early 2000s when I was going to Point Pleasant and investigating Mothman. We were in the TNT area where some of the original sightings took place, and this was early fall. So a little bit too early to be deer season, but I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I'm being very objective in that. But we were out near where one of the igloos are out there in the TNT area, and the road kind of just basically dissects the TNT area. It splits it in half, and on one side of the road there was a deer carcass. It did not appear. I've grown up in the mountains of Virginia my entire life. This was obviously not a kill. This wasn't a hunter shooting a deer. Didn't appear to be a hit and run. It was dead. There were no bullet wounds. It didn't seem to be any type of gun trauma or car trauma. It was just a dead carcass. Mm-hmm. But it was also skinned. It was just a carcass lying there without the skin. The skin was on the other side. Was on the other side of the road.
That's weird.
Very. And I remember, there were about 6 of us that were there, and it's like, holy crap. You got a dead deer here, and the skin on the other side of the road. If you're a hunter and you're hunting deer, you don't skin it and then not claim the meat.
Right.
And I don't know anybody who skins a deer for the skin and then doesn't take the skin with them. It was this very odd just scenario. When I read this story about the carcass and the mist, and that was what popped into my mind.
Yeah, and he did have some weird deer mutilations out there too. If you notice, there are a couple of other photographs. There's one that shows a deer that had its right leg haunch, right up to the haunch, carved away as if by a surgical knife. But and now this was a maggoty deer. I mean, it was maggoty by the time he laid it down. I saw it myself, beforehand, before this happened to it. And so no human in the right mind was after it by any means. But something like surgically removed this right leg haunch and took it away. And they kind of jammed it up between 2 trees on the ground as if to brace it. To do that now, like a cougar will take something that it's killed and go put it up in a tree to keep it safe from other things, and so it can return to its leisure. But this was totally unprotected. It wasn't like a cougar does things. It was just sort of jammed in between these little 2 trees. Its neck was, in order to have get a better hold on it, almost was how it seemed to me. And then it was interesting because, wholly unbeknown, somebody from Hillsboro was sending me. It's another small town up in central part of Wisconsin. There is a former reporter who's interested in strange animal sightings up there, and a farmer had given him a photo taken of one of his cows where the exact same thing had been done to it out in the field. The right leg haunch was surgically removed, taken away. Nothing else was touched on it except on that one, on the cow, the eye and the lips and things had been cored out, as in more standard mutilations. So I wonder if maybe because the deer that was taken away at that, the correlating deer was in such bad condition that perhaps those other tissues had deteriorated and weren't wanted anymore. It just took the leg. But it was identical, and this is probably like 150 miles away from one another and totally unbeknownst to one another in terms of the people finding this. So that I thought was pretty amazing too, and just something that, who could explain that?
Right. And
well, not me.
No.
Except, and again, there were, strange creature prints around there. There's another type of print that has shown up at the Wisconsin field that looks like not exactly like a horseshoe, because it's more of a straight U shape than you usually see on a horseshoe, but there's sort of like a filled in letter U, really deeply indented into the hard soil. And again, it's bipedal, whatever it is, and we've never been able to figure out what those things are. And the owner has gone oftentimes to the Department of Natural Resources asking them to help him figure out what some of these tracks and things are. And he was told by one that those were not an animal track. They were dug by a mouse. But they go for a straight track line all the way across the field in regular 6-foot intervals. So he's like, how can that be a mouse jumping precisely that distance? And digging this certain sized U-shaped hole across a whole field. I'd like to meet the mouse that could do that. So it's just mystery upon mystery.
And it's just getting written off by the higher-ups who don't want to deal with it.
Either that or they genuinely don't know. I think a lot of times they genuinely do not know.
Okay.
Sometimes I think they do, and sometimes I think they don't. It's just my opinion.
That makes sense, too.
Right.
Okay. Going back to Wolf's Egg, because I had made a note. But now all of the strange grunting and growling sounds and things, would it be possible for something at the bottom of that hole, sinkhole, ravine, whatever the very, very deep,
really deep cave?
There we go, really deep cave. Could there be water down there, and it's making odd noises, and by the time it gets to the top, it sounds a little more, sinister or animalistic than what you might expect, and that could spook people as well? Or what do you think there?
Well, I think that's a very, sensible idea. I don't really know if they have ever been able to prove anything like that. It seems it's like an abyss. It seems to drop down forever. It's at least 35 meters deep.
Right.
And
it's like 144 feet. Is that correct?
144 feet. Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Okay.
And there have been expeditions sent out to find if there's a place where you could hear that breathing, grunting, or growling. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe they've ever found. I think they were hoping to find something like an air shaft or maybe an underground spring that would join it, and there'd be bubbling noises. But all they really found were horizontal tunnels filled with animal bones.
That was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there are other caves and old mines in the area, and since it is so difficult to access, I think it's entirely possible that some of those other caves and old mines and things perhaps did intersect down at the deepest depths, and who knows, I mean, it's really difficult to go in and map something like that well enough. But
true.
It doesn't sound to me like they've ever been able to prove anything like that existed.
Do you know if they've ever gotten all the way to the bottom?
Well, I guess if they've measured it, they've gotten down there, but they haven't really been able to completely explore it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think they've gotten to the bottom, but then they couldn't go. I don't know if it was too dangerous or just, didn't offer access or something like that. Mm-hmm. They haven't been able to really document what all is there at the bottom or where it leads to.
Right, yeah. That, perhaps they actually even did an echo type test with, maybe sonar or depth charges?
Yeah, I would hope. Yeah, they keep coming out with even more wonderful equipment to, take different recordings of the size and space of hollow areas beneath the surface. Mm-hmm. And, I don't want to even get into that. I'm not enough of a techno person, but I'm sure there's probably more that they can try and more that will come along that is able to perhaps tell them what is there.
It was just a very interesting area and little mystery going on there. I was looking further, going, I wonder. That's my head, right, though. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It even has a lady in white ghost.
Right.
So it's and plus the werewolf-like creatures. So it sort of has everything going for it.
Right. And losing my geographical compass there, how close is that Bavarian forest to the Black Forest?
Ooh, right offhand, I'd have to go look that up to be sure.
Oh, sure. Okay.
About it. I won't
and I can do that, too.
It's the Hohenfels training area, if that helps you, and very close to Wolf's Egg, the name of the town. So I'm sure one little Google punch will bring it up.
Most likely, yes. When it's not late at night and I'm reading a physical book, the computer's over there, it'll wait till morning. Right.
More comfy to stay where you are. I keep a notebook that's what I always think of things. So I keep a notepad by my bed, because otherwise it's here tonight, gone tomorrow.
Oh, yes, that quickly.
In my case.
Mine too, completely. Well, and also on my notes, because I did keep the notepad right there in my hand, but now, as far as the Skinwalker ranches go, I know that the Native Americans, they didn't want to go onto these lands, but have the shamans or holy men of the surrounding tribes ever gone on and tried to cleanse it of any of the negative type energies? The Skinwalkers are supposed to be some nasty, nasty entities, dark, evil magic going on.
Right. And, I couldn't tell you that for sure one way or the other. What the impression that I do get, and maybe you learn more from the books, but the impression that I get is that the area Native Americans just didn't want anything to do with that land whatsoever.
That's how you wrote. That's how I read it. Yeah,
Yeah, and that may not be true. There may be certain incidents, and perhaps that family, brought in some. I'm just not recalling it off the top of my head right now.
Oh. Threw you a curveball. I apologize.
But that's yeah. Kelleher, and I'm trying to think of the names of the authors. Kelleher, and again, a very well-known reporter, and it's called Skinwalker Ranch. So it's easy for people to find, and it's very well-known, and the book is fascinating itself. And of course, I wasn't trying to get that whole book into my book. I just wanted to put enough to show that there were comparable things happening in these two very far away from one another places, and yet the same phenomena seemed all connected together somehow.
It was a very interesting, very, very busy place. Or places they were. It was impressive.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it astounds me that the things are still also happening at this Wisconsin ranch too. And I've got there's another chapter. Oh, by the way, as long as we're mentioning those things, this is kind of interesting. You'll find this is toward the end, there is a photograph of this, what looks like the head and a forward reaching arm of something crouching in the hayfield. And it looks like a furry black humanoid is what it looks like. It's greatly zoomed, so it's not as sharp as it should be. But the first time we saw it, we thought it was a bird or something, just went over it. And then we happened to have it zoomed in for something else and went, oh no, that's not a bird. We could see where it was actually occupying space. And I went trekking out to the other side of the field, and we lined up where it was and set the camera at the same place and took like a comparative shot. And you can see the picture of it, and then you can see the picture of me, and you can deduce that. And I'm a little over 5 feet tall, so I'm not very large, but it was at least as large, if not larger, most likely larger than me. I would have been the bare minimum size for it to have been. There's nothing out there that would equal the size of a 5-foot person with no ears, of just this round black furry head. You can see all the limbs are, and the rest of it is this dark black color. Well, we thought that was amazing enough, but the following year, too late, unfortunately, to appear in the book, about the same time of year, we got a second shot of what looked like the same creature, this time kneeling in the hay.
Oh, my.
And it's, again, black and furry. You can see there's a head, big, wide shoulders. And this time I made the landowner go out there and pose and be the Bobo, as we call it. How on Finding Bigfoot, Bobo always goes and reenact. So he was out there in just about the exact same spot. And I might add, in both instances, whatever it was near the tree line where we always were putting the deer and heading toward the deer spot where there was one. But this second grouping, you can easily see whatever this was. The property owner is like about 6'2". This thing was at least as tall as him and twice as wide.
Wow.
And we did not get it in the book, but you may see that again. I published that and the comparison on my web page, or my blog, which is, again, lindagodfrey.com. Just go there and scroll down a bit. You should be able to find it. So you can see both of the shots. And it's interesting because the trail cam seemed to work when we used it on the other side of the field, where it was too far for any close detection by creatures, because these shots were both taken, mind you, all the way across a hayfield. And when they're close up, they get circumvented. But it appears that when we put them on the other side of the field, they don't seem to really notice it as much. And I think that's how we got lucky and finally got pictures of. Now, I might also add one other thing. In both these instances, a year apart, in that same exact spot, you can tell, and there are, I think it was taking like three shots a minute, so there were actually 3 shots that showed the direction it was going. In both cases, it was headed not only straight for where the deer carcass was, but where we saw an orange light that was exactly like what was described in the Skinwalker Ranch book as a portal. And where we have another shot of one of those orange lights existing for about half an hour and then blinking out, and then there's something black and furry up against the camera lens.
It almost seems like perhaps they're emitting their own electronic field is not quite right, but their own energy signature, and it's interfering with the cameras and the electronic equipment.
That could be, yeah, and it might be that the hayfield's distance is just enough to keep them from doing that. But it also seems like, I mean, what they're heading for is described in exactly the same way as these. They're sort of like opals of orange light in the tree line. Same thing as Skinwalker Ranch, where they positively identified those as portals at the Skinwalker Ranch. So are they heading back to the portal, or are they heading to the deer, or what is it? Whatever it is, they don't seem to really be able to notice that the other side of the hayfield has a camera aimed at that spot.
Intriguing. Very intriguing. Things that make you go,
Right.
You still there, Travis?
I am still here. Because I was actually getting ready to follow up with my own question about portals, because we were discussing that. Now, towards the end of the book, Linda, you have a chapter called Possibly Portals, and you talk about the state of Kentucky. Now, I live in Virginia. I work in Kentucky. You talk about an author, Barton Nunley, who has written a book, Mysterious Kentucky, and you talk about specifically the Kentucky.
Just came out with volume 2, I have to add.
Yeah. Yes, and he deals with something called you deal with something that was seen called the Kentucky Sky Castle, and you talk about specifically Henderson, Kentucky, and again going back to places like Skinwalker Ranch. You're dealing with something here that has, according to you, and you quote Nunley, few places can compare to Henderson County when it comes to anomalous activity. In the book, he documents scores of strange reports of huge bipedal furry beast goat men, the infamous humanoid known as the Spotsville Monster, UFOs, and lake monsters. Perhaps some can be attributed to mere folklore or legend, but where all are the rest coming from? Probably not Illinois or other neighboring states. Portals could explain a lot. So, taking what he writes about in Mysterious Kentucky, combining it with the concept of portals and these other phenomena, what type of conclusion are you drawing in this chapter when you talk about this?
Well, my only real conclusion is that perhaps we should remain open to the possibility of there being other states of existence, other sorts of places that have a different, I'm tangling up my sentence here, places that operate on a different electromagnetic wavelength than we do or that creatures around us do. And this is not like airy fairy tale stuff anymore to think about there being these other places, because are cutting-edge physics discoveries, and leading scientists these days are discovering that there are other worlds, other dimensions. They don't know which theoretical model is correct yet. There's this idea that they may be kind of like you picture a long string of bubbles attached to one another, and that you can kind of breathe through those or punch through those little walls between the bubbles. That's one. There are many others I won't even go into because it can get very complicated. So we don't know what model that would follow, but they're same mathematical formulas that predict all the other things that happen in the universe and how it operates and how one X relates to Y have for the most part proven out. And they indicate that these other dimensions or worlds, whatever they turn out to be or whatever you want to call them, most likely do exist, and that at least in the micro level right now it's known that they could intersect. If they can intersect and perhaps interact on the micro level, perhaps it's possible. We don't know that yet on the macro. It's all a lot of maybes, would-bes, could-bes, but it is a possibility that exists according to our best science. And so I don't think you can just dismiss that out of hand anymore and say, well, no, that couldn't be. Because, yeah, the scientists are saying it could. And they've been right about many other things. So I think that they deserve to have a listen. And frankly, it would really help us reconcile some of these events where creatures are acting in ways that creatures shouldn't act. They disappear. They drop into the middle of a snowfield coming from seemingly nowhere. They develop strange glows. Their eyes glow in ways that they aren't supposed to be able to. They do things like that are not verified by zoologists or park personnel, such as running on hind legs as a matter of course all the time. I mean, any mammal can get around on its hind legs if it's injured or trained by a human, perhaps, to do so. But most don't, because they're not built to do that. And I've asked experts everywhere I can find them and said, do you know of any natural wolf packs or feral dogs that run around as a group on their hind legs? And they've all said, no, we've never seen that. I've even talked to Rolf Peterson, who has run the Isle Royale Moose and Wolf Observation Program up in Lake Michigan for many years, where if ever it should happen, because they've got some bone problems, from the inbreeding up there, and with some of those wolves, they've had them. Nothing out of the ordinary in terms of the locomotion of these wolves. So when you have discrepancies like this and you're trying to explain them, and then there are other possibilities coming out that our scientists say, well, this could be, it's impossible for me not to at least open the door to that idea, and again, we have no way of knowing what type of openings these are, if they really are true portals in the sense that they actually go someplace, or if some people have suggested they act like focal points for holographic images that are 3D but beamed to us from somewhere else. I find that an intriguing idea.
Very much so. That thought never even came anywhere near my own orbit.
Well, it's one of the newer ones, I think. But
okay.
We know holographs exist. We can make 3D printers. We can make holographic images now. So we know that is a thing.
Yes, it is.
It's something that is not science fiction or fairy tale or anything else like that. It's in the realm of possibility, of known possibility.
Mm-hmm. Could be just darn near anything these days.
Yeah, and it's hard to say how we'll ever find out. Maybe if we ever do find out, we'll wish we hadn't. I don't know. I don't know that it's a good thing, and people always say, well, if you see one, are you going to run to it or from it? And I say, well, I'd like to see what it is, but that Bible verse about fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I wouldn't mind observing from a safe place. That's my standard answer.
Mm-hmm. Come on now. the true journalist wants to rush in.
Right.
You do want to go there. You want to see. I remember when we were doing the Mothman documentary, and one of the questions we inevitably got asked, there were three of us, myself and two others. There were, what would you do if you came into contact with Mothman? And I think, the same kind of thing is true in regard to any phenomena. If you see a UFO, if you come upon a dog man, if you come upon a bipedal creature, if you come upon the Loch Ness Monster, if you come upon a portal, what would you do? Most of us would stand in awe, in all honesty. We would just be there. That's why, the skeptics say, well, why didn't you get a picture? Well, I didn't get a picture because I was scared out of my mind, or I was dumbfounded, or I was amazed at what I was seeing. That's why I didn't get a picture. Hell, I was visiting my nephew at my parents' house the other day, and he was doing the itsy bitsy spider, and I forgot to turn my damn camera phone on to record it so my kids could see it, because I was just taken in awe of him. That's what happens when we see things sometimes. We just forget.
Mm-hmm. Right. We do. Well, I can think of a classic time when I literally ended up covered in dew, and I don't mean DEW type of dew, because I ran towards something. I was sent on an assignment to find and photograph this place where there were a lot of great blue heron nests, kind of a stark sort of thing. And I drove up and I looked, and there were these bare trees. And what happens is the trees become bare because the droppings from them eventually kill they fall down to the ground and are acidic enough that they kill the roots of the tree. But it's very striking. You see these bare trees and these huge nests and these necks sticking up. And I was so taken with it. I grabbed I had my camera around my neck, and I just started running into this field toward them. And then I sniffed a little bit, and I realized the field was newly manured. And I was running through it in my good shoes.
Oh, no.
And it was disgusting. Mm-hmm. So I stopped where I was. I took my shots. I got a couple of nice photos. I did, and trudged back to the car. And then I didn't want to wear my shoes into my car. It was awful. But that's what happens when you rush in. Oftentimes, is you come up with mud and other substances upon you.
Well, it was funny. Not funny, but ironic. A couple of weeks ago, I came into the radio station where I work, and my morning board operator. They don't call them DJs anymore. Apparently, that's politically incorrect to call them DJs. So they call them board operators. And I'm not exactly sure if that's spelled BOARD or BORED. I'm not exactly sure, but. He also does our local news and covers stories, and a lot of times, because we are building our news department, we are taking news stories that happen overnight or earlier in the morning, and we're running with them. But there was a house fire this one particular morning, and we broke the story. We had a photograph and everything, and I asked him how he got it, and he said, ironically, I woke up about 4:30, and I went to the kitchen, and I made a bowl of cereal, and he said, I came back to my bedroom, and I sat down at my desk, and he said, I looked out the window, and he said, I noticed that my neighbor's house was on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, and I was really concerned. He said, because I hadn't seen the neighbor in a couple of days. He said, so I was really concerned, and I said, did you grab your camera and go out and take pictures? And he said, actually, yes, I did. I said, well, good. I said, that's what a good journalist does. I said, you see something happening, and if you're a good journalist, you make it into a news story. Mm-hmm. And he's like, but I was also worried about my neighbor. I said, yeah, but you got the pictures first before you found out about your neighbor. That makes you a journalist first.
Well, it makes him detached enough to be able to go and do his job, which, obviously was my problem with the heron nest. I was not detached.
Exactly.
I was just so happy to see them, and you're like a kid, you just go running to it. And then you're sorry.
and that's what I told him. I said, you were able to be objective. It was your neighbor, and you were concerned, and obviously it was near your house, and so, with house fires, it could catch. I said, but you were objective enough that you were able to get the story. And I said, and kudos to you, we broke it before some of these other guys broke it, and I'm glad. I mean, that puts, because I'm, in my management role, I'm detached and objective at that point, and going on about what a good job he did. But I do think, again, that's why I love reading your books, because you bring detached, not in a bad way, but in an objective journalistic way. You bring that to the table, as opposed to a lot of the paranormal enthusiasts, the ghost hunters, the cryptozoologists, who are so impassioned by what they're researching that they have lost that objectivity and that detachment.
That does happen, and it's a tricky thing. It's very hard to be that way all the time, because so many of these topics are very personal. A lot of people come in to say, they come and find dogman sites or get interested in sightings of ghosts and things because they've had their own experience, and it's very close to them, and this is one way that helps them process it. So it's very hard to give up that close emotional attachment, I think, in a lot of cases. And I try not to really judge any researchers or investigators for having opinions, because I realize, or for having the views that they do, because people come at this from all different places, and are into it for all different reasons, and you just never know. And lots of times they won't tell you the most heartrending bits of, what happened to them, or, especially with, you find that with, I think, people who have seen visitations of loved ones are some of the most emotional that you hear from people. And so I don't know where I'm going with all of that, but it is true that there's a certain amount of just professional detachment that you need if you're going to just get in there and tell that story.
Yep.
So, and I did have a good training in working for that newspaper for 10 years. I was writing about everything else except for unknown upright canines. I think I did 4 or 5 short updates. Every once in a while I'd do a column if some new really amazing journalist came to town from one of the TV stations. But otherwise, all that time, I was writing about, families with problems because they couldn't get their autistic children cared for properly, or just whatever local things, local politics, whatever was happening around in the area. Very little of it was about strange things. In fact, almost none of it was. So, but it was very good training for that.
Now, we've got like 9 minutes left in the program. It's amazing how quickly 2 hours flies by, especially when you're talking to somebody as engaging as you are. But one of you start out, you open the story talking about something that fell from the sky, and then we go through and you kind of jump to hellmouths and portals, and we deal with the portal there at Skinwalker Ranch, and we jump to the Kentucky Sky Castle and everything. But you kind of start rounding out the book, the very last chapter, searching for the Wisconsin portal back to Smithfield.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found by going back to Smithfield?
Well, our basic takeaway is that there seems to be something that really doesn't want to be looked at, but that finds some sort of very profitable, and I don't mean in a monetary way, but profitable for an animal or a creature or an entity. Maybe it was just all the deer carcasses that were left there. Something that made it want to keep coming back. And there is this story, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, where the owner and my colleague Sanjay Singhal and I were having a nighttime stakeout, which was my idea. There was a large deer carcass that had not been touched by anything, which was really out of character. And I said, well, let's try it just from, maybe it's that detachment again, other side of the field, just stake out, stay low and see if we could spot anything with just our own eyes instead of all, and we had, I think, one trail cam going somewhere, but mostly we were just sitting out there watching across the field, pretty much in the same view that you see where that creature's head is sticking up out of the field. And over that tree line, there was a line of air traffic. It's a general air lane right there. And we were kind of looking at those and watching the plane lights go by. And we'd been out there maybe an hour or so after dark began. And I was looking at one, and all of a sudden, it wasn't just, sometimes your eyes can play tricks on you, and you think it's moving back and forth, but it isn't. This was stopping, going way back, and then going way forward. There was like no missing it. And I said, guys, I was sitting in the back seat. We were in Sanjay's car, and the property owner was in the right. I said, that's not an airplane. And here's the weird thing. As soon as I said that, it stopped again. It turned like a right angle, made like a right angle toward us, and began coming across the field at us. Now, it appeared to be, as it got closer, a sphere of light is what I call it. And it came within about 30 feet of the car, and somewhere between 20 and 30 feet up, we estimated. And it just stopped. So there's this basketball-sized sphere of light that wasn't really lighting things up, just hanging there. And we were completely shocked. And I had my hands on my camera. I was just lifting it to take the photo, and Sanjay happened to have a very large flashlight, which he shined out of the window at it. And when he did that, it didn't do anything immediately, which it should have, if this was just a weird, light beam from something else. He shined it on it, and we all had this feeling that whatever it was surprised or something, and it hesitated, and then all of a sudden it sort of imploded in upon itself, and it was gone. And we all yelled because we were so close. We saw it so clearly, and the owner, who, as I said, was a retired physics and math teacher, said, that can't be. That's not physics. That could not have happened. That couldn't be. But yet we all saw it. The three of us saw it. And that was pretty amazing. It was just kind of a very strange thing. And we had to leave. Sanjay wasn't feeling very well after that, because he actually also got out of the car after that happened. He got out for a minute, then he got back in and really wanted to leave. It affected him. Maybe he saved us from being abducted, for all we know. It's just how it happened. But just adding to the other many light anomalies that had occurred out there. So I guess our conclusion is that although we don't understand it, there is some sort of animate form that is aware of and can possibly interact with human beings, because we feel that is what happened there, and what happened with the cameras and many other things that occurred out there. I mean, I'm just hitting the couple of highlights there. But if that's happening other places, what are we dealing with? I think it would behoove us to find out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of finding out, how can people share with you their encounters with, we'll just say, the unknown, whether it's portals or cryptids or dogmen or bipedal furry creatures or deer carcasses and mysterious creatures, M-I-S-T, not M-Y. how can they get in touch with you and share their stories?
Sure. Yeah, it's not limited. I got a fantastic elf sighting this last week.
Elf?
Seriously, an elf sighting?
Seriously, yeah. It's a very, very interesting.
Okay, spill.
No.
Yeah, you got to share that one.
Yeah.
You can't leave us with an elf sighting and not tell us about it.
I'll just give you the short version. It was a man who...
short version. I get it.
Well, I have to, because I don't have it in front of me. But no, it was a man who had been training in metaphysics and was out wanting to see something. And it was a case of a portal-like opening occurring, and then these strange creatures that he could barely even describe. But one was a humanoid with sort of a pointy head that was like an elf cap. And he felt that he could have gone in there, or they could have come out, and he just asked for it. He got very cold feet all of a sudden and kind of asked for it to go away. And I'm waiting for him to send me a drawing of the whole thing. But So, I mean, it's not like I'm limited to furry creatures. And Bigfoot, I get a lot of Bigfoot sightings, which are always very interesting to me because those I have seen more than once. Maybe that's a different show. I can't remember if I've talked about that or not. But, yeah, I've seen on 3 occasions one that looked just like that one that you'll find on my blog that was taken out in the field or at the end of the book, the black furry ones. And one of my neighbors saw one of those same ones, so it wasn't just me, and a child in the neighborhood as well. So, yeah, Bigfoot, we got him. But, again, it's lindagodfrey.com. It's a WordPress blog, so there's no WWs. And you can find a form where you can just send me whatever message you want to. And you can also find my email is in there. You can just send me an email. It's probably the easiest way to do it.
Very good. Thank you.
Now, you mentioned another book that you're working on. What is it, and when will it be out?
Well, there will be strange creatures in it. That's all. That's all I can say right now. I'm still, I'm having some talks with the publisher about it to finalize some of its aspects. So I can't say a lot right now. Other than that, it will have strange creatures, and it's a different aspect of looking at them that wasn't entirely my idea. The publisher kind of came up with it, and we're hacking it out. So it'll be something unique. I'm excited about it, just getting going. And these things usually take on to 1 to 2 years. Depends on how fast I get it written.
Well, we are definitely anxious. Yeah, definitely anxious to see it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
And we will definitely have you back on the show. We need to have you back on. There's so much we haven't even covered in this book. I mean, this is an amazing book, and we definitely will have to have you back on. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's always a pleasure, always fun. Wendy and I always learn something, and we also always walk away going, damn, that was just interesting.
Exceptionally.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I learned from the two of you. I learn something every time I go on a radio show as well. I'm always looking for things, and I've heard things from both of you. So thank you again for having me and for the inspiration.
Oh, hey, anytime.
Well, Wendy is, and Wendy's smart. I'm just a smart ass. So it's always fun when we get to combine the two for our radio program. But we do thank you, and we want to have you back on in the coming weeks. Like I said, we're rebuilding the program, we're rebuilding the platform. We've got a growing audience. We're finding that this platform is much better. It's much more conducive to what we do than the previous platform. And thank you so much for being with us again. You're one of our favorite recurring guests.
Yes,
very much. Well, I look forward to being back, and I'm going to hold you to that.
Thank you. Yeah, we will have you back. I promise. I guarantee.
We've discussed teaming you up with Redfern, and it seems like there was one other man at the Dogman Festival that might be fun.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we would love to have you guys on to talk, to Dogmen and cryptid, just to have an entirely cryptid type of show.
Oh, sure.
And do that. So, we think that would be all kinds of fun. So we're looking forward to doing that. Next week, Nick Redfern will be talking about secret societies. His new book that's out.
Oh, yes, sorry. My bad.
What was that?
Nothing at all. What? I said nothing at all.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then on the 26th, Bill Bean will be back on, and God knows what we'll be talking about with Bill. The Mandela effect, demonic possession, UFOs, dark force. There's no telling with Bill. He's always fun. Yes. You never know where that conversation is going to go, but we're looking forward to that as well. Wendy, you're taking us out with another song. What great program director song have you got for us? I need to hire you for my radio station. What do we have going on?
Well, I was thinking that Rob Zombie has all I can get on an actual title is one of the best damn werewolf videos around, but the song is really it's very quick, it's very upbeat, very good. Rob Zombie, obviously.
Yeah, typical, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's hear it.
Okay, alrighty.
Go away, play.
Play it. I'm sorry, I said play away. All right.
No, I said play away.
I will play away. You'll have to listen to the archive.
I know.
recording.
I'll listen later.
Yeah,
I'll listen later.
Well, I'll send you a link too.
Send me the link.
Okay, I'll do it.
Have a great night and a great week, everybody.
You too. Bye.
They can sense the rhythm of your blood.
What do you see?
They can sense the rhythm of your blood.
What do you see?
They can sense the rhythm of your blood.
What do you see?
They can sense the rhythm of your blood.
What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? What do you see?
Thank you for joining us tonight. You've been listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. Join us every Wednesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. On behalf of Wendy Schindler, this is Travis Short saying have a great rest of your week.
And that's all, folks.